welcome to another House of Wisdom lightest and best video. And today I'm really excited. We have the Brian Nadeau Sharp Bay Design Micro Typhoon. Brian Nadeau is a knife maker in Stanhope, New Jersey. He's been a full-time knife maker since 2013. The Micro Typhoon is a smaller 3-inch version of the original 4-inch Typhoon and later the 3.5-inch Mini Typhoon. I have a Mini Typhoon here that you can compare the two, and you can see the familial resemblance. The Mini Typhoon had a variety of customization options. I got the fullered one with a regular blade. This has a swedge, but that option was available also on this. Also, it has the portholes on the handle, which I really liked. This one doesn't have that option. And the clips are a little bit different. This dives into the middle of the knife, and this is a loop over clip that goes into the back. But you can see the familial resemblance and where the design inspiration comes from looking at the Mini Typhoon. Well, several of Brian's knives are named after weather disaster. He's had a hurricane, a typhoon, a cyclone, and that's sort of a naming theme that he has. Riot is the manufacturer of this particular knife. The rest of his knives have been customs, which he makes in-house, but this is his first foray with a collaboration with Riot Knives. Talking about the specifications of the knife, the blade on this knife is a 3-inch blade. The handle is a 3 7/8 inch long handle, giving a total knife length of 6 7/8 inches long. The weight of the knife is 2.7 ounces. And for comparison, I have some similarly sized knives. First, the small Sabenza from Chris Reeves, and then from Benchmade, the Mini Reptilian. These are approximately both the same size. The blade on this knife is a damasteel blade, and I want to show off how beautiful that damasteel pattern is. There's the show side and also the clip side. The blade has some swedging on top and also some jimping, which gives you good traction and purchase. It's a drop point blade with a high flat ground. It goes almost to the top there. This blade is also made in a cheaper version, the M390. Both are good selections. This particular version adds $200 onto the cost of the knife. The method of deployment of the knife is by flipper, and the flipper just fits your finger nicely, and the knife flips out just so great. It's a shakedown action, much like the Mini Typhoon, and that's just the way that Brian makes his knives. It's a shakedown action, so it doesn't guillotine your fingers. This point here looks like it would hurt you, but really your finger just falls onto it. It doesn't hurt you whatsoever. I want to make a note also that the flipper is designed so that it makes a perfect contour with the cutout for your first finger, and ergonomically it's very nice. Other knife makers have done that also. I'll take one of Jason Browse's knives. This one, as you can tell, has the same idea. The flipper forms a perfect contour, and whenever you grip it, it just feels great in your hand. There's nothing sharp poking into your hand. Here is another knife, the Razorback by Jason Browse, that he used a different design language. This flipper comes off at about 90 degrees, and it isn't quite as comfortable. It kind of pokes into your finger, so I like it when it has the smooth contour, and Brian Nadeau had that design element in his knife. The handle on this particular knife is made of a titanium AL6 V4, and the AL6 means that's about 6% aluminum. The V4 is about 4% vanadium, so about 90% of this titanium alloy is actually titanium, and then there's alloys of aluminum and vanadium for the rest of it. This particular iteration has the PVD coating, which is a strong protective coating, and then it has bone white inlays, and I'm going to get those in the light for you so you can see there's a little bit of wood grain-like texturing in those white bone inlays. They're made out of bone. I believe they're micarta or G10, but they're lovely. It gives it that tuxedo look. There's another style of handle which is bead blasted titanium with carbon fiber inlays, and it's very sharp too. The construction of the knife is a flow-through design. It has a small back spacer, just like the Mini Typhoon, and it has some gear patterns so that if you have a reverse grip, it gives you a little bit of traction. Note that on the interior of the blade of the knife handle, there's no milling. The milling is done on the exterior, so they have to mill out a recess for this bone white inlay, so that's where the weight gets saved because the inlay is lighter than the titanium. The pivot of the knife is a ceramic ball bearing pivot, and it is run and loosened by a T9 Torx bits. These 6 divots around it are just for decoration, and I just want to let you know that there was some milling and intention with this pivot. See how it's raised like an anthill or something like that? And the rest of the knife is milled away and contoured, and that's on both sides. The pivot area is raised, and actually, if you do a pinch grip, you can really get a good grip on that because the divots give you some traction as well as the Torx bits. The other screws on the knife, for example, the body screws are a T8 Torx, and then these screws that hold the inlay are T6. The screw that holds the lock bar interface is a T8 also. One of the differences in the Mini Typhoon is that there are 2 screws holding the over travel stop lock bar interface, which has the detent nub on it, and on this one there's just 1. Okay, moving on. Those are the pivots. It's a ceramic ball bearing pivot, and the lock on the bar is a frame lock, and it looks like it might be a subliner lock, but really this is just an inlay. One of the things I want to draw your attention to is that the over travel stop on this particular knife is done so that the detent nub lock bar interface catches a lip here. So there's a lip milled into the frame at the top here so that it can't go beyond that. Notice that the lock bar interface detent nub extends beyond the lock bar, and this is unusual. I'll get you another knife to show you how it's normally done. Normally they mill out a little area in the lock bar interface and then they slide it in there, and then the over travel stop is down here somewhere instead of at the top. So Brian has a different idea and maybe a better idea for an over travel stop. I want to point out too that also the bone white inlay functions as a bit of an over travel stop. I don't know if it's more decorative or more functional, but I think it's a little bit of both. The pocket clip on the knife is distinctive. It is a screwless pocket clip. It goes and dives in and is sandwiched between the back spacer and the handle scale, and then it's clamped down with these screws, and it's a loop over style clip. This is different than the Typhoon and the Mini Typhoon. There's also is a, let's see if I can demonstrate this to you. There's also is a screwless construction, but it dives in through the frame. And then maybe you can see this. It goes back and then is sandwiched between the back spacer and the handle scales there. So if I had a preference, I prefer this because I particularly like the deep carry clips. The other thing I want to bring to your attention about the deep carry clip is there is an artistic effort made that the edge of the bone white inlay is parallels the edge of the clip, and this is a difference and from the Mini Typhoon. Also, the edge of the Mini Typhoon clip was just rounded because there's a lot of round features on this, but he wanted it to cosmetically look good. Okay, the other thing about Brian Nadeau clips that I appreciate is that it's a broad bowing for the traction point. Most bent clips don't employ that. They have a sharp bent takeoff. I'll show you the Chris Reeves Sabenza. See how it's a sharp bend here, and I'll show you also the bent clip that exists on the Benchmade style clip where there's a sharp bend here and there's more traction there. These are more likely to rip up your pants. I find that this broad, smooth bend in the clip gives you good traction. It's not falling out of your pocket and it doesn't rip up your pants nearly as much. The ergonomics of the knife are simple and great. There's one cutout for your forefinger, and then your other fingers just go on the knife like that. And again, there's some jimping on the dorsal spine of the knife. Again, the flipper tab makes a continuous, nice, smooth, comfortable feeling there with the rest of the handle. The action of the knife is great, and this is what I want to bring attention to. Instead of a detent ball, Brian Nadeau and Sharp by Designs use a detent nub. This little piece of metal here is all milled away flat except for the very end where there's a nub. And so with a normal knife, I'll just get a Sabenza here. And I'm not picking on anybody, just Sabenza has been compared as the standard. It has a detent ball, and what you have in the action and the sound of it, you'll have two clicks. One click, and that's where I call it the detent angle, where the blade is rolling along, or the detent ball is rolling along on the blade, and then boom, it falls off, and then you have your lockup. And so whenever you click this out, there's a click, click, and with the detent nub, you don't have that. You just have a one firm click. And the other thing is whenever you break the detent, it's an immediate break because it's at the very end of the detent ball. The action of this knife is a shake-shut action, which I have mentioned before. It's very smooth, but it's not going to guillotine your finger. We'll talk about the signage a little bit. This is one thing I appreciate about the knife. It is completely sterile on the show side, and the signage is minimal on the clip side. There is the BN there, the Brian Nadeau maker mark, and that is the only markings on this beautiful knife. They didn't want to detract, for one thing, from this damascene steel. Isn't that just beautiful? Okay, the value of the knife in its M390 form costs only $300, and if you add the damascene steel blade, it adds $200, so it bumps it up to $500, which is really a steep price hike for the damascene steel, but I like the damascene steel so much I had to have it. But really, if you can have an entry price of a Brian Nadeau engineered design knife made by Riot for $300, that's pretty good. I want to contrast that from my Mini Typhoon. It ran me, with all the features that I had, around $800. So you can get one of these by Brian Nadeau for $800, or one of these in its base model for $300. So I think that that's a good value. So what do I think about the Brian Nadeau Micro Typhoon made by Riot Knives? I absolutely love it. I've been looking forward to getting this knife for over a year now. He told me he was going to make one at Blade 2017, and finally it's here after a year or more later than that. Are there opportunities for improvement? Well, the only thing I can think about is that instead of having Riot make it, you could have Brian Nadeau make it. But I'm philosophically in tune with knife manufacturers, departing from just making customs to also making mid-tack and production knives. For example, not everybody wants to spend $800 on a Brian Nadeau knife, and if you can get one that has the same design characteristics and made by a high-class company like Riot for $300, less than half the price, well, that's a bargain, so I'm glad that it exists. What do I like about the knife? I want to talk about the distinctive features that Brian Nadeau adds to knifedom, which is the screwless clip, especially this loop over clip with the bowed design. I really like it. It's innovative, it's special, it's distinctive. And the other thing that Brian Nadeau contributes is the detent nub instead of a detent ball in a knife. I think everybody ought to try it out just to feel the difference in the action. I like that he involved Riot. If you have to have an OEM manufacturer, get Riot. They do everything with excellence. They do everything well. I also like the size of the knife. The 3-inch blade is just perfect. And they picked two of the best steels going. M390, if you have your regular steel for a high-grade steel, is one of the best. And this damascene steel that I got is just beautiful. I just can't get my eyes off of it. And lastly, the value. Especially in the M390 version, you can come in at a $390 price point with this. It is a bargain at that. So if you're looking for these characteristics, an innovative pocket clip, an innovative detent nub, Riot's involvement as a manufacturer, an EDC-sized with beautiful blades either in damascene steel or M390, and at a great entry price level, the Brian Nadeau Sharp Die Design Micro Typhoon might be the knife for you. I sure like it. Well, thanks for watching the video. Like and subscribe if you hasn't already, and we'll see you on the next House of Wisdom Lightest and Best Knife Review video.